lovers, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be taking you through a little Illustrator tutorial on how to create using shapes. We are going to be creating a Ferris wheel today, so let's go ahead and Google search for a reference photo because doing this from memory is a little difficult. Found some nice ones there. Seems like most of the shapes are circles and triangles, so let's just get our workspace set up nice and neat. Go to preferences and setting up the stage to 1080 by 720. You can undock and redock the tools panels on either side of the program. And let's go ahead and start making our Ferris wheel by choosing the ellipse tool. If you hold down Shift, click and drag onto this stage, you can go ahead and make a perfect circle. So we are going to make ours pretty big, only because a Ferris wheel is quite large. Press Command or Control C and then Command or Control F on our keyboards, and we will make a copy of that same circle. With the circle still selected, it is going to have a bounding box around it. That's how you know it is selected. Go to one of the corners, click and drag in to make this circle smaller. So let's look back at our reference photos to see what the inside looks like. Just seems like a whole bunch of diagonal lines. The base is usually a triangle, so let's make a triangle. Go ahead and choose your rectangle tool from the left tools panel over there. We'll just make a really long rectangle by clicking and dragging until we get a pretty decent size. To rotate the object, you can go ahead and keep the object selected. It will have a bounding box, and when you come to a corner and hover, your pointer will turn into a double arrow ended pointer, and then you can click and drag to rotate. We're going to create two of those. We will press Command C or Control C on your keyboard, and then Command V or Control V on your keyboard, and then we are going to reflect it so that we can have one on each side. So to reflect it, you're going to go to the top tools panel, click on Object. It'll bring down a menu, hover over Transform, and then choose Reflect, and you'll just reflect vertically. Once we have the object reflected, we are then going to match the two tops of each rectangle together and make sure they are overlapping by just clicking and dragging. Then we are going to check our right tools panel on the right side of the screen to check for Pathfinder. If you cannot find the Pathfinder toolbox, just go up to the top toolbox, go to Window, and then click on the one that says Pathfinder under the drop-down menu options. So there are many options here between shape modes and pathfinders. So what we want is pathfinders. We're going to make sure that both of the rectangular objects are selected by clicking one, then holding Shift and clicking the second one, and then we are going to choose Unite, which will be the first little icon there under shape modes. Next, we are going to make sure everything is in line. So we are going to go under the Align toolbox, and we are going to select everything on the stage by clicking Control A or Command A, and that selects everything, and we are going to align by the center of the selection. So it'll be the second icon under Align Objects. Now let's go ahead and make a smaller circle at the top of the triangle we just created. Go over to our ellipse tool once again. If the ellipse tool is not the one selected on the toolbar, click and hold until you see the ellipse tool pop up. Then hold down Shift, click and drag until we make a perfect circle that covers up the joint of the triangle. Next, we are going to move on to the spokes. The spokes are what hold the outer circles to the inner circle so that the Ferris wheel can rotate. The way you can do this is just take the line tool, which is the diagonal line between the ellipse tool and the type tool that looks like a T on your left toolbar. Click, then drag, then click again, and it'll make a line. You can also do something very cool. You can change the width of the line by choosing the width tool. It is the tool that almost looks like a jester hat. It's right above the icon that looks like a little push pin. So you're going to click on that. You're going to go over to the spoke we created, and once you hover over it, you're going to see a blue dot appears. You're going to click and drag on either side, and it will widen the area or shrink the area depending on which direction you go. We're going to widen the base that connects to the smaller circle, and then repeat these spokes by doing a technique called rotating on a circular path. In order to rotate on a circular path, first click on that spoke, and then we're going to go to View, click on Outline, select the spoke. Right now it just looks like a line. And then you're going to press the Rotate tool, which is over here on the left tool panel. To select a center point or an axis point where you're going to rotate from, choose the center of that middle circle that we created to cover the triangle a few moments ago. So go ahead and Alt-click on the center of that circle, and a little dialog box is going to pop up that says rotate, and then you're going to see an angle option box with a 360-degree circle with a line through it. This is asking you what angle degree do you want the spokes to repeat on. So we are going to just choose a nice random one. You can do a little bit of math and divide 360 by however many degrees that you think you should have it at. Let's just go ahead and divide it by like 30. I'm just going to put in 12, and we're going to press copy, and as you will see, it will copy one to the left of the original. Then press Control D on your keyboard, because Control D just repeats the last option you chose, and it's going to repeat that all the way around if you just keep on clicking Control D on your keyboard or Command D until you reach back up to where you started. You can change your view back to preview mode out of outline mode just by going up, clicking on View, and clicking GPU preview, or you can press Control Y or Command Y on your keyboard once again to go back to the original preview. Let's take another look at our reference photos just so we can see what the details of a Ferris wheel are for the inside, and it looks like it's a whole bunch of triangles. Let's create more triangles, but let's try it a different way. Go ahead and choose your ellipse tool, and then click and hold with your mouse until the dialog box pops up. Choose the star tool. Click, hold, and drag the mouse to create a decently sized star. And now I will show you how to isolate a triangle out of the star. Go ahead back to that star tool that you just selected. On the left tools panel, click and hold until the dialog box pops up again, and click the rectangle tool. Draw a rectangle over the top of the star at the base of the top triangular point of the star so that you can isolate that section. Make sure both the star and the rectangle are selected. Then we are going to use a new tool like the Shape Builder tool. It kind of looks like a little cloud with a selection tool on it. It is the icon in your left tools panel right below the icon that looks like a push pin. Hover over the rectangle and star you had just created, which should still be selected. Once you hover over it, you will see a gray pointillized pattern start to appear on the separate objects. Hold down Alt, click and drag everything you don't want, the rest of the star and the rectangle. It'll leave you with this little triangle. Let's place it in the center on top of that first spoke that we created a long time ago, and make sure it is in line with that spoke and the center circle. Now we are going to do that rotate along a circular path option again. Select your rotate tool or whatever your keyboard shortcut for it is, and then click Control Y. Make sure the triangle you created is still selected. Alt click on the center of that very inner circle. Then the rotate dialog box is going to pop up again. In the angle option dialog box, double check that the degrees is set to 12 and then press copy. Once you press copy, then go ahead and click Control D on your keyboard or Command D just to duplicate the last command that you had just done. Keep clicking Control or Command D until you reach the top of the Ferris wheel with the first triangle we created. Then click Control or Command Y on your keyboard to go back to the original preview mode. We are going to select all of the triangles by going up to the top taskbar, Clicking on select, same appearance. It will then select all of the triangles. Going to our Pathfinder toolbox, click on the first icon entitled Unite once again, so you kind of get what looks like a sun. After that, you can change the stroke and fill color of the triangles that now look like a sun. I changed the fill color to nothing because I don't want it to be filled in with color. Now this Ferris wheel is looking pretty good, but we're missing something. We're missing seats. Where are the people gonna sit? Go ahead and choose that rectangle tool from the left tools panel. Click and hold, click on the rounded rectangle tool. We're going to create the little bucket seats. Not really sure what they're called specifically, but we're going to call them bucket seats. Click and drag on the stage until you get a decently sized bucket seat. Now we're going to do another rotate on a circular path again. I changed the fill color of my bucket seat just for fun. Go ahead and make sure that first bucket seat is still selected. Hit Control or Command Y on your keyboard to change the screen to outline mode. Choose the rotate tool and the dialog box will pop up once again. I'm pretty sure we are all familiar with this by now. We're going to change the degrees in the angle dialog box. So we are going to change that to about 15, let's say, and then hit copy, then hit Control or Command D on your keyboard until you come back to the original bucket seat that you created. Go ahead and hit Control Y or Command Y once again to go back to the original preview mode. So you should have about a dozen bucket seats. Now I chose mine to be the color blue, but we're going to change that in just a minute. Right now I'm making sure that they are all rotated upright. For realism purposes, we don't want people falling out of them. You can either choose to rotate them from the pop-up dialog box under Object Rotate, or you can physically rotate them by selecting the bucket seat and hovering over a corner of the bounding box and clicking and dragging with the mouse. Right now I'm making sure that the center point of each bucket seat is in line with the outermost circle, so that they all look like they are the same distance apart from the center. From here, let's make sure all details are taken care of. And then I'm going to choose some different colors. Let's go for some bright ones. Let's choose a yellow and red, maybe red. No, let's do pink. So yellow and pink. If you want to make this a little bit faster, go ahead and select one of the bucket seats that you want to change the color of. Click the letter I on your keyboard, and it will pop up with a eyedropper tool as your new selection tool. Go ahead and click on the fill color of another bucket seat that you want to take that color from, and it will automatically change the new bucket seat color to that color. It'll just make your workflow a little bit faster. And now the bucket seats are all colorful. We want to set those bucket seats behind everything else. So select all the bucket seats, press Control Shift left bracket or Command Shift left bracket on your keyboard, and it'll send all of the buckets to the background. Now let's change the color of the spokes and details on the inside of the Ferris wheel. For this, we're going to do a gradient. If you do not see the gradient dialog box on the right side of your screen, just go up to the top taskbar, click on Window, and go down alphabetically until you see Gradient and click on that. The dialog box will pop up on the screen, and we are going to choose one of the details. Let's start with the triangle sun, and we are going to make sure that the stroke option is selected on the dialog box, which should be default set to black. The type of gradient we want is linear, and we're going to just pull the colors that we chose for the bucket seats into this. Underneath the slider, where it goes from white to black, there are these color boxes that look like tiny houses. If you want to create a new one, hover underneath the color slider, click, and it will add one. To change the color of those sliders, double click on the inner square, and you will be able to change the color from the dialog box that pops up. Choose from your previously made colors. Next, we're going to change that object into an actual object, because right now it is only a stroke. Go up to the top taskbar, click on Object, go down to Path, Outline Stroke. That will then create our selection into an actual object. The gradient we created will move from the stroke to the fill, as you can see in the gradient toolbox. That way we can add our own stroke to it to make it really stand out. I just chose black and I changed the stroke point weight to about 1 or 2. From there, we are going to color the spokes with a gradient as well. So you can click on one of the spokes, go up to the top taskbar once again, choose select same appearance, and it will choose all of the spokes at the same time. And then I'm going to apply that same gradient to the stroke of them and choose the linear type. I decided to take out the blue only because I thought it made the spokes look a little too crowded and fight against the rest of the details. So I kept it yellow and pink. For the rest of it, as you may notice, some of the gradients end up coming out backwards from the others. For those, go ahead and choose the ones that are not the same, and you can change the angle of direction of the gradient under the 45-degree angle dialog box until they all look the same. You can mess with the degrees, 30, 60, 90, whatever works until they all look similar. From there, I did the same thing I did with the innermost details, and I outlined the stroke of all of those spokes so they became real objects, and I added a 2-point stroke in black on that so it pops out a little bit more. We are almost done. The very last step is to take that first triangle, which is the base of the Ferris wheel, and bring that to the foreground because that is the thing that you see first. It should be at the very forefront of your view. We are going to select that triangle base and then press Control Shift right bracket on your keyboard or Command Shift right bracket on your keyboard, and it'll bring it up to the forefront as the first thing you see. And we are done. I hope you guys learned some new tips and tricks and some new tools to use to increase your workflow. Go ahead and leave me a comment down below if there's anything else you would like to see more in depth, specifically with new tools, gradients, when to use them, how to use them, and so forth. Leave me a thumbs up if you want me to do more tutorials, and I will see you soon, creatives.